The city never truly slept. It only shifted its breathing pattern, slowing in the early hours and rising again with the first impatient horns of morning traffic. On nights when the air tasted of rain and gasoline, when neon reflections stretched like melted color across wet pavement, the city felt alive in a way that was almost human. It listened, it remembered, it whispered. And on such a night, a man walked through it with a stride that suggested he owned more than just the ground beneath his feet. His smile was smooth enough to lower suspicion, his eyes sharp enough to spot danger before it formed. They would come to call him Slick Willie, a nickname born not from birth records or family legacy, but from the slow agreement of the streets, where reputation is currency and rumor travels faster than light. Before that name settled into the city's collective memory, he was simply David Sutton, a child molded quietly by circumstances that never asked his permission. Hello friends, welcome back to The True Story on our channel Crime Chronicles US, where America's unsolved mysteries, vanished criminals, and chilling cases come alive. Every story is real, every detail matters, and the truth remains buried in the shadows. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to stay updated with every mystery. David's earliest memories were filled with the sound of raised voices leaking through thin apartment walls, the flicker of a broken television casting blue light across a room that never felt warm enough. His mother was exhausted, more often than she was present, working double shifts, coming home with sore feet and distant eyes. His father was a storm that arrived without warning and left just as suddenly, taking peace with him every time. David learned early that stability was a luxury reserved for other families. He learned to observe before he spoke, to assess before he acted, to sense shifts in tone the way sailors sense changing tides. The world felt unsafe, unpredictable, but young David discovered that people could be read like open books if you knew where to look. That skill became his first real possession. In school, he was the kid who sat quietly in the back, watching everything, saying little. Teachers noticed he understood lessons faster than most, but his homework rarely appeared. His attention often drifted toward the window. He wasn't drawn to knowledge for knowledge's sake. He was drawn to patterns. He learned how people reacted to compliments, how anger flared, how fear softened voices. Outside school, the neighborhood raised him in its own way. Corner stores with tired clerks, street hustlers with fast mouths, men leaning against cars, counting cash they never explained. David watched them all. One afternoon, still just a boy, he slipped a chocolate bar into his jacket and walked out without paying. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might break his ribs. When nothing happened, when the door closed behind him and the clerk didn't shout, he felt something new. Power. Not the power to hurt, but the power to bend rules without consequence. That moment planted a seed. As he grew, so did his confidence. He learned to lie without blinking, to mimic sincerity, to appear harmless. By his mid-teens, he was selling fake concert tickets and lifted phones, never staying in one spot too long. People liked him. They trusted him. He told jokes, made eye contact, remembered names. He had the kind of charm that made others feel chosen. And trust, once given, was easy to exploit. The nickname came one night after he talked his way past security into a private event. A friend laughed and said, "Man, you slick, Willie." The name stuck like glue, passed from mouth to mouth, until David Sutton started to fade, replaced by Slick Willie. Home life never improved. His mother grew quieter. His father disappeared for good. No guidance arrived. No voice saying stop, slow down, choose differently. Instead, the streets offered applause. Slick Willie was good at what he did. Too good. By his early 20s, small hustles no longer satisfied him. He wanted bigger plays, larger paydays, the kind of operations that required planning instead of luck. He studied bag schedules, transport deliveries, credit systems. He learned how money moved invisibly, how paperwork could be forged, how identities could be reshaped. He wasn't reckless. He was methodical. He didn't carry a gun. He carried knowledge. And knowledge in the wrong direction can be more dangerous than any weapon. He built relationships carefully. A driver who asked no questions. A clerk who accepted envelopes. A tech-savvy friend who opened digital doors. Slick Willie became the quiet architect behind schemes that left no fingerprints. Money flowed in streams that never touched his hands directly. He dressed well now. Clean shoes, pressed shirts, a watch that gleamed under city lights. To strangers, he looked like a rising businessman. To those who knew better, he was the mind behind a growing shadow economy. But ambition has a hunger that never feels full. The more he succeeded, the more he believed he could never be touched. He started taking bigger risks, deals with people he didn't fully trust, operations that involved real danger. One night, a plan went wrong. Someone panicked, a gun appeared, a single shot echoed. Slick Willie didn't fire it, but he stood close enough to feel the shockwave ripple through his bones. A man fell. Blood spread across the floor. In that moment, the game changed. He walked away, physically unharmed. But the echo of that gunshot followed him afterward, in silence, in dreams, in reflection. From that night forward, the line between strategy and survival blurred. Slick Willie understood that once violence touches your world, it stains everything. He moved even more carefully now, more distant, more controlled. Friends became assets, smiles became tools, romance became leverage. He trusted no one fully. Every conversation was measured, every meeting scanned for exits. Yet on the surface, he thrived. Expensive dinners, private rooms, quiet respect from dangerous people. The city spoke his name with a mixture of admiration and caution. By his late 20s, Slick Willie had become a myth. Stories exaggerated his reach, his wealth, his influence. Some said he could make problems disappear. Some said he could ruin lives with a phone call. The truth was simpler and more frightening. He had mastered human weakness. He knew what people wanted, what they feared, what they'd sacrifice for comfort or power. And he used that knowledge like a sculptor uses clay, shaping outcomes to his favor. But myths attract attention. Rivals noticed him. Law enforcement began connecting dots. Former allies grew jealous. And behind all his charm and calculated moves, David Sutton, the boy who once watched storms of anger shake his childhood home, still lived inside, driven by a quiet fear of returning to powerlessness. That fear pushed him forward, even when instinct warned him to slow down. And that is where part 1 pauses. Slick Willie stands at the peak of his constructed world, unaware that gravity never forgets its duty. End of part 1. Part 2. The collapse of an empire rarely arrives with drama. It creeps through unnoticed cracks, disguised as routine. A missing call, a delayed payment, a stranger asking too many questions. Slick Willie felt the shift before proof appeared. He woke one morning with a tension in his chest he couldn't shake. Something in the air felt wrong. He visited one of his trusted contacts and found the door locked and the windows dark. Another associate stopped answering messages. A third spoke nervously, voice tight, ending the conversation too quickly. Slick Willie knew betrayal when he tasted it. He moved quickly, trying to reroute plans, hide evidence, secure funds. But momentum had already turned. Law enforcement had spent years assembling fragments, building a quiet case piece by piece. They didn't need force. They needed timing. And when they arrived, it was with precision, not chaos. Outside a downtown hotel, under clean daylight that felt too honest for his kind of life, officers surrounded him. Slick Willie adjusted his jacket, lifted his hands, and smiled. Even then, performance mattered. Cameras flashed. Bystanders gasped. The city watched its myth step into handcuffs. The trial became a public spectacle. Names were spoken. Documents displayed. Voices trembled as former allies testified. Slick Willie sat still, observing everything like a student studying a final lesson. He did not shout. He did not cry. He simply watched as the story he had lived privately unfolded in public. When the verdict came, he nodded once, as if confirming what he already knew. The judge's words were heavy, but not surprising. Years were assigned. Freedom was removed. Applause and outrage rippled through the crowd. And just like that, Slick Willie the Untouchable became inmate David Sutton. Prison stripped away luxury, but not intellect. At first, he struggled with the noise, the routines, the loss of autonomy. But adaptation was always his talent. He found quiet corners. He read books. He studied psychology, history, philosophy. For the first time, he examined his own life, not as a strategist, but as a subject. He traced his story backward, from handcuffs to childhood, from ambition to fear. He saw how small decisions accumulated into irreversible paths. He saw how charm became manipulation, how survival became exploitation. Other inmates respected him. Some feared him. Some wanted advice. Slick Willie never lost his ability to read people. But now he used it differently, less for control and more for understanding. Nights were long, lights never fully dark. And in those hours, he confronted the version of himself he had spent years outrunning. He wasn't a monster born from nothing. He was a child who adapted too well to instability. A boy who learned that rules were flexible. A man who discovered that intelligence without moral direction could build a throne on unstable ground. He did not excuse himself. He simply understood himself. And that understanding became its own kind of sentence. Outside, the city moved on. New hustlers rose. New legends formed. Slick Willie's name slowly faded from headlines, surviving only in whispered stories. Inside, David Sutton aged. His hair grayed, his posture softened. He still carried that sharp gaze, but behind it lived a quieter mind. He wrote letters to no one in particular. He imagined conversations with the child he once was. He wondered who that boy might have become if just one guiding hand had appeared at the right time. Years later, standing by a small barred window, he watched the city lights in the distance. Neon still glowed, sirens still cried, rain still painted reflections on pavement. The same city that had raised him, fed him, crowned him, and captured him. He felt no anger now, only acceptance. The story had run its course. And so the tale ends, not with explosions or final words, but with silence, a man looking out. A city breathing on, and the echo of a lesson left for anyone willing to listen, that the path to destruction is rarely chosen all at once. It is built quietly, step by step, smile by smile, shortcut by shortcut, until one day the mirror reflects a stranger. The whisper of Slick Willie dissolves into memory. The boy named David Sutton remains, somewhere deep inside, still wondering how it all happened. So friends, if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Crime Chronicles US for more chilling unsolved mysteries from across America. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next story.